the stupid shit, and I remove it. Remove. Save those changes. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay. There are only two types of men in the Mexican Navy: the fellows who like the belt ammo necklace, and the ones who prefer the grenade necklaces. We've been arguing backstage for a few minutes, and I'm saying that doesn't quite translate right. He says it's fine. Not sure what to make of that, but I guess it's just a disagreement of opinions. So let's do this thing. You ready? I'm ready.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where you can look a gift horse in the mouth, but I recommend not trying to look up his ass. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all smarmaladians at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. We are just bursting with effervescent joy that you could join us this evening. Here's your golden age of Western civilization news roundup for the week ending 16 May. Okay, full disclosure, it's actually 17 May because I did cheat a little bit and I put a Saturday story in the Friday slot, but you will understand why in about 12 to 13 minutes, so just trust your correspondent on this one, is all I'm saying. Dateline 10 Downing Street, in the Emirate of Londonistan, Monday, 12 May. Well, matters have not improved, not even one little bit, for Sir Keir and the Stormtroopers since last we checked in with him. In fact, things got so bad this week that Sir Keir himself, Stormtrooper number 1, had to stand before the British nation on Monday with that inimitable facial expression of his looking like a deer in the headlights who is also an adolescent girl who just saw a penis for the first time, and explained that, yeah, okay, we were either lying the whole time or we really are just that stupid and incompetent, so take your pick, I guess. But the point is, we admit that the last quarter century of unchecked mass migration might not have been the best thing in the world. It might not have unlocked all of the wondrous economic benefits we said it would. It may have degraded our common culture just a tiny bit, just like Enoch Powell told us it would, 65 years ago now? And you know how very much it pains us to say something that can be seen as vindicating Enoch Powell, so I trust that impresses upon you the gravity of the situation, which is to say we, your ruling class, the people with all the titles and the knighthoods and the fancy post-nominal letters, we really are just as stupid as you fine people have always suspected us of being. But we stand before you today to convey our willingness to reverse and disavow and repudiate every single thing we have ever said and thought. If you will just promise to please not make us give up power, because we really like power a lot. I'm sure you understand. And here it is, out of Sir Keir's own facehole. Listen to this load of fiery right-wing invective directly from the Labour Party Prime Minister. Quote, "People should commit to integration and learning our language, and the system should distinguish between those that do and those that don't. That's fair. And Christ, the only thing that would make that scene better is if a couple of London Metro cops, females of course, with their cute little yellow safety vests, rushed into the scene and charged the rostrum and took Sir Keir into custody on suspicion of a public disorder offense likely to cause thoughts of xenophobia in the mind of some hypothetical person somewhere. Because, I mean, come on! If the average British person posted those very exact same words on Facebook, there is a non-zero chance that is exactly the sequence of events that they could look forward to. And we've got hundreds and thousands of videos now out there of British cops coming to people's houses and arresting them on suspicion of racially insensitive social media posts. But you will bear in mind also, Sir Keir, Earl of Stormtrooper Meadows, he's not the first Prime Minister we have heard disingenuously bloviating in this manner. Hell, we have probably heard it all the way from every Prime Minister all the way back to Theresa May, where the PM gets up there and goes, okay, fine, we admit it, mass migration. It might not be as great as we've played it up to be, but darn it, we have heard your voices and we promise to get those numbers down just as soon as we possibly can. And then, of course, the numbers continue going up by an order of magnitude for another dozen years in a row or so. But Sir Keir, I think, is probably in the most untenable position you can be in for a first-year Prime Minister, which it seems hard to believe that he still is. So he doesn't actually have to call an election until 2029, I believe. But with his personal brand in the toilet and his party's brand in the toilet, I still give him at maximum the 18 months I gave him when he first took over. And I stand ready to laugh at all of my British critics who said that was just a pipe dream on my part, because I have had a few pipe dreams in my time, but that was not one of them. Dateline Milwaukee, Tuesday, 13 May. Milwaukee Circuit Judge Hannah Duggan, whom I continue to maintain is in fact the female doppelganger of Minnesota Governor Tampon Tim Walz, was indicted by a grand jury this week for her antics back on the 18th of April when she decided to cosplay the resistance, as you do, and facilitate the escape from her courthouse of a criminal illegal alien who was otherwise about to be taken into custody by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE to their friends. Judge Hannah, or the artist formerly known as Judge Hannah, I think we can now safely call her, she faces a minimum of 6 years, or maximum of 6 years in prison, and a $350,000 fine for doing this thing that she inexplicably chose to do, allegedly, but don't take this reporter's word for it. Let's let the indictment do the talking. Count 1, quote, "The grand jury alleges that on or about April 18th, 2025, in the state and eastern district of Wisconsin, Hannah C. Duggan knowingly concealed EFR, a person for whose arrest a warrant and process had been issued under the provisions of a law of the United States, so as to prevent the discovery and arrest of EFR, after notice and knowledge of the fact that a warrant and process had been issued for the apprehension of EFR. Count 2, quote, "The grand jury further charges that on or about April 18th, 2025, in the state and eastern district of Wisconsin, Hannah C. Duggan did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper administration of the law under which a pending proceeding was being had before a department and agency of the United States, namely the administrative arrest of EFR for purposes of removal proceedings conducted by the United States Department of Homeland Security by committing affirmative acts to assist EFR to evade arrest," end quote. And you know what? You'll forgive me for the sudden and perhaps drastic shift of topic, but I wonder the same thing about Judge Hannah that I do about former FBI Director and certified ignoramus James Comey. The thing I wonder is, what was their mental best case scenario when they chose to do the thing they did? When Judge Hannah made the choice to plan and facilitate the escape of a fugitive from justice Did she imagine there would be no price to pay on her end, that she could continue being a judge? That she would be proclaimed some hero of the resistance and get to go on The View? I mean, what? Which, granted, she may still get to do, but you'll have to ask the Federal Bureau of Prisons what their rules are on such things. I don't know. And when Jim Comey made the choice to tweet out a very thinly veiled implicit threat of violence upon the current president of the United States, how did he think that was going to go? Did he think he was going to parlay that into a week of cable news hits and fun sit-down interviews on all the late-night shows? Hell, maybe if things play out right, a Netflix documentary and a 7-figure book advance. Who knows? Now, how long ago was it that Comey wrote his last memoir? Wasn't it like 7 or 8 years ago? So basically what we're looking at is the dude spent all the money from the last book advance. He needs a new book advance in order to maintain the lifestyle to which he has grown accustomed. And instead, well, he's probably going to prison. And what's worse, he doesn't even have the option of swapping out his gender and sharing a cell with Judge Hannah over at the women's prison. So, good work, Jim. Good work, Judge Hannah. You have both really crowned yourselves in glory this week. Dateline, the French goddamn Riviera, Wednesday, 14 May. Former actor and current ridiculous geriatric buffoon Robert De Niro used the occasion of his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Cannes Film Festival to say a bunch of bad things about Donald Trump. In fact, the same bunch of things we hear him say each time someone makes the dreadful mistake of putting his mouth next to a live microphone. Now, when is the last time I heard Robert De Niro make any public statement that wasn't about Donald Trump? Well, I can't say. It's been quite a while. Probably most of a decade, seems like. Now, how many hours in an average day does Robert De Niro spend thinking about Donald Trump? Well, I can't say that either. But if I'm making an educated guess, I'm saying it's not 0 and it's not 24, but it's probably closer to the latter than the former. And look, for as much as it's easy, low-hanging comedic fruit to mock this man who has set himself up as such an easy target for mockery, we should still, I think, take a moment to remark on how sad this is when a great actor with a formidable body of work who has made more bona fide contributions to the culture than most people have spends the final years of his life reducing himself to a comic stooge who just wants the youngsters to think he's cool. We saw it this week with Bruce Springsteen as well, and what is either man achieving here except to debase himself personally and to diminish his own contributions to the common culture? Because I don't know about you, but I've always been fairly good at separating a man's artistic output from his dumbass politics, and I thought I would always be able to do that with De Niro. Springsteen I was never a fan of, so he can go get fucked for all I care. But with De Niro, for a long time, I was able to keep the whole thing compartmentalized in my own mind. Just try to ignore all the embarrassing comedy cash grabs that he did after age 65. Try to ignore his idiotic current-day politics. And just enjoy the contributions that he made to our cinematic lexicon back in the days when he was a talented actor. But I can't do that anymore. The idiotic 84-year-old version of Bob De Niro who just wants to blubber about the bad orange man, who never does anything except blubber about the bad orange man, he's knocked down those walls that I tried to build for him inside my own psyche. So I hope it was worth it, making it so I can't really watch anything he's done anymore and just enjoy the performances on their own merits. The bitter geriatric version of Bob De Niro has thus decreed that unless you agree with his political views today in the 2020s, well, he doesn't really want you seeing any value in any aspect of his prior acting career. And why does he do it? Why do any of them do it? What benefit do they think redounds to them personally when weighed against the accrued cultural capital that they wind up spending as part of the bargain? Is it so the youngsters will think they're cool? Is it so they get lots of upvotes on social media? I mean, which thing would you rather have etched on your tombstone when you get right down to it? Would you rather have timeless immortal artist whose works spoke to multiple generations, or tiny insignificant barnacle on the hull of the USS Donald Trump? And I guess ultimately that's your own damn business which one you pick. Free country and all that. Dateline, Associated Press land, wherever that is, Thursday, 15 May. And a story that serves as a powerful reminder of why do we do this mindless tribalism thing when it makes us so miserable? 2/3 of registered Democrats report that they are ravaged with despair over the current state of their party. And who can say, really, which is the biggest ingredient in this stew of Democrat melancholy? Maybe it's the secure border. Maybe it's the awesome trade deals. Maybe it is the wholesale reshoring of vast swaths of our manufacturing sector that we only offshored in the first place because we were a bunch of damned fools. Maybe it's the stock market that stubbornly remains up for the year despite the best efforts of the media Democrat complex to openly cheerlead for a total economic collapse. Because, yeah, guys, no idea why those trust and approval numbers are so far down the commode. Maybe when you go on television and root for the country to fail, your own voters don't like it all that much, more than the other voters do. Or the independents do. Or anybody does, really, for that matter. Maybe rooting for your country to fail is just a bad look. Maybe when the American president does well, when he strikes a deal that's unambiguously a good thing for the people of the country, it's okay to politely applaud. Or at least not tie yourself into the most ridiculous sorts of intellectual pretzel shapes, trying to argue that it's the worst thing in the world and everybody should be ashamed of it. But for as long as the corporate fake news media continue to exist, we will continue to get that. But then you find people don't need me to tell you that because you get your news and your commentary from real journalists, present company included. But sometimes, when I read poll numbers, and maybe you're the same way, but I always find myself being fascinated by the people who are in the minority number. For example, in this poll, this Associated Press / NORC, Center for Public Affairs Research poll, whatever the hell that means, I can't help fixating on the 35% of Democrats who say they are somewhat or very optimistic about the future of the party. The party that used the corpse of Joe Biden as the bookmark in the story of Donald Trump. The party that tells its voters with a straight face that feminism means your daughter getting her nose crushed into the dirt by a male opponent on the sporting field and then him waving his lady penis in her face afterward in the changing room. The party that thinks all Ivy League graduation ceremonies should look like full-on Hamas rallies, with nothing but keffiyehs and Palestine flags as far as the eye can see, and who knows, maybe we can look forward to yellow stars of David for the Jewish graduates next year. Unclear. Maybe subscribe to the Columbia University Twitter feed. I dare you to, but be ready. I mean, if you like a constant stream of Islamic terrorism adjacent content, but hey, I ain't here to judge. The party that absolutely sparkly hearts the same open-ended foreign nation-building military adventures that they used to so revile. Well, sure, of course I want to go spread democracy by the point of a sword. It's what all the cool kids are doing. Just as long as the Democrat president's doing it, I'm cool with it. The party that told you Joe Biden was still totally good to serve another 4 years, damn it. He's the best Joe Biden ever. For whatever that's worth. Right up until he performed so dismally in the first debate that they found their position suddenly completely untenable. So, like reasonable people, they knifed their own president in the back and chucked him out the nearest window. Now, what do you suppose the average Democrat would say if we asked him, what are the unifying principles of the Democrat Party that have always held true throughout your life as a registered Democrat? I think the only possible answer is the racial identitarianism stuff. And I think that's sad. Dateline New York City, Saturday, 17 May. Wait! I hear you say, did I just bastardize the rules of the game and run a Saturday story in place of the traditional Friday story? Why, yes, as a matter of fact, that is exactly what I've done. And would I ever do a thing like that, except in the most exceptional of circumstances? I would not. So what occasion rises to the level of such gravity as to warrant such an unprecedented breach of the normal protocols? Well, you tell me. How often does a Mexican Navy sailing ship declare war on the Brooklyn Bridge? And, spoiler alert, the bridge won the battle. Which, if I was a more callous man than I am, I might say that's the most significant surface action in which the Mexican Navy has been involved since, well, ever. But I am not that man, and I would never say something like that. Now, there's a number of questions you might have here right off the bat. Number one, there's a Mexican Navy? Yes, apparently there is, and who knew? Number two, is it normal for 21st century navies to still have sailing warships in commission? Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, the Brits have got HMS Victory still afloat, still in commission. We've got our own humble little USS Constitution, Old Ironsides to her friends. Still afloat, still in commission. But you know what the difference is between this and that? Victory and Constitution, they don't sail 1,000 miles away from their home port to get defeated by a foreign bridge. And shout out also to Washington Augustus Roebling, am I right? Son of John Augustus Roebling, architect of that very same Brooklyn Bridge, for you uncultured ruffians who don't know that. He may not have conceived the bridge, but he damn well finished building the thing after his old man died. And what other kind of service did that man render to his country? I am glad you asked. Little Round Top Hill, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Thursday, 2 July, 1863. Second Lieutenant George Washington Roebling, Company K, 6th New York Independent Battery. He is among the first to reconnoiter that fateful hill that will play such a pivotal role in the events of the next 72 hours, where so many of the greatest men this nation ever produced would etch their very names on the tablet of history. And he took a good look around, and he reported back to his commander, Colonel Strong Vincent, a man who would lose his own life on that self-same hill the very next day, and he said, "Yes, sir, we can fight the enemy here, and we will give him a frightful whooping." He didn't actually say that. I just like to imagine that he would have said something like that. But by the end of the war, Lieutenant Roebling, he has gotten himself brevetted all the way up to goddamn bird colonel. And it's not because he's a fancy rich kid from New York City. It's because he's a fucking badass, and he distinguishes himself on several fields of battle after Gettysburg, like we expect a man to do if we are going to call him a fucking badass, because we are not a nation that bestows that title lightly. And in later life, he becomes the guy who finished the work of building the Brooklyn Bridge, a bridge that's been in active daily operation for over 140 years now. It will likely stand for 1,000 years more, and she is still in good enough shape to defeat the flagship of the Mexican Navy. And if that doesn't make you want to stand and salute and say, "America, fuck yeah," well, I'm going to report you for being a dirty communist. I feel like I have talked for an unusually long time. Have I talked for an unusually long time? Well, I guess that's not for me to say, really. In any event, the roundup is over now, so you will have to suffer through the remainder of the show that I did not write ahead of time. And with that, I pass the rhinestone-studded baton over to my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, keeping the Georgia wilderness safe from Yankee spies since at least 1863, but that's as far back as the records go. The one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Give me the money. Give me the money.
Freaking buttons every time, dude. Like, really. All right. So welcome to the Blast Radius, ladies and gentlemen. This is your terrible producer who can't hit all the right buttons because I'm usually doing something other than producing, like texting or, purchasing Sasquatch emergency vehicles. But either way, I was told in no uncertain terms that I should definitely rant more often because my co-host feels that he's the only one ranting. So something occurred to me earlier. And I didn't realize I was going to have a rant on it until it started coming out of my mouth backstage. And I was like, I need to put a tap on that so I can get it out here. But it goes a little something like this. You've heard the term black fatigue, white fatigue, and general fatigue in the political spheres in the past, 3 weeks? It's become suddenly all the rage. There's the woke right, black fatigue, and all kinds of other stuff. Well, guess what? You're wrong. That is just a label they're sticking on the current issue, and that current issue has nothing to do with race and everything to do with artificial victims. The issue that the general populace is having is with these professional victims, the ones that are paid quite often quite well to come out here and parade these victim narratives so that everybody will fall in their nice little boxes and everything. And it's just not working anymore. And they're freaking out. They don't know what to do. And so they try to hang labels in every aspect of it and try to put you in your little corner and tell you you're a bad little racist to sit down and shut up and get on the right side of history. And it's not working anymore. It's not working anymore because you've overplayed your cards. You have over-victimized absolutely every aspect of the population, and they don't respect you anymore. They don't respect your opinion. So hate harder, hate more. I'm sure that'll work this time. Thank you. I needed that.
I wanted that rant to go for like 10 more minutes, personally. I can't speak for anyone else, but I was just really starting to get into that.
I might not be done. There might be another soliloquy on that if I happen to trigger.
And I think I speak for the entire audience when I say more rants out of you, my friend.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Things don't generally anger me. But one of the things that does is when people misuse words in a malicious way. You know, propaganda is one of those things that bothers me. And this reeks of propaganda. The invention of slots in places to put people that don't fit anymore. They don't fit. They don't fit because they're not woke, or they are woke, and maybe they're right wing, but they're woke, or they're left wing and not woke. And none of these people fit in any of the boxes that currently exist. So they're having to create new boxes. And one of the concepts that has broken my freaking brain is black fatigue. As I understand it, and I might be wrong, I've watched quite a few videos on it the past couple of days, not intentionally. It just keeps coming up while I'm over here cooking or barbecuing a chicken or whatever else I'm doing. And my phone's sitting over yonder, and I don't want to get the barbecue fingers on the phone. And I'm like, I don't want to hear this because this is all just moronic propaganda. Black fatigue. Apparently, it's not just for white folks now. Apparently, black people are having this particular issue with black people, and it's the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. Because used to, whenever you'd have one of these people pop up and start waxing philosophical about exactly what it is that bothers them with modern America, inevitably they would get the usual tropes of, you know, Uncle Tom and all kinds of other derogatory stuff thrown at them. And while that's still happening, they don't care, bro. They don't care. I don't care. You don't care. Nobody cares what you call people anymore. And the word racist no longer has the punch you used to use it for. Hate harder.
And it seems pretty clear that the term black fatigue has been coined by black people themselves. Black people who are sick and tired of seeing other black people act like the defining characteristic of black people should be victimization. And I wouldn't want to see my own people doing that either. I mean, how could you not get sick of that? But that is what, you know, I don't want to say plantation owners, but let's say paternalistic liberal whites. That's exactly the kind of world they want to live in. They want to watch videos of black people talking about what victims they are, because that makes them feel virtuous about themselves. That makes them.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm done.
My entire point about the whole thing, though, is that it's not just black people. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the exhaustion of the victim narrative. You
right, and I was I was talking specifically about the coining of the term, which was as far as I meant my meaning to extend. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, and I can see that. But the victim narrative has been so overplayed. Like, you cannot come into a space, utterly dominate that space while cry bullying your way through the entire process. Apparently it used to work, but it's not happening anymore. People have started gatekeeping their spaces. They have taken away the power of these canceling people that are out there trying to wield their propaganda money. And I suspect there's a lot less propaganda money running around in that space. So the people who are getting it are going hard. And we're going to take a look at one of these folks later.
And did we maybe see a little tiny taste of that last week with Mark Lamont Hill, who found himself on a Piers Morgan panel with 4 other people, but none of the other people were like-minded to him. So whereas he's normally accustomed to appearing alongside a group of other panel members who are going to be happy to blow smoke up his ass and tell him that he's doing great and everything you're saying is perfect and yeah, you're such a victim, he found himself in a position instead to which he was quite unaccustomed, where the other people were not buying his bullshit bloviating and actually wanted him to make sense on an intellectual level, and that just made that dude's head explode. He never was upset by nothing's ever upset any man as much as he was upset by that.
He upset himself. He was the only one that dropped a hard R in the whole thing, and then he triggered on someone not saying it. Someone asking someone to say it. Now, what would have happened if Pierce had turned and looked at him and asked him to say it? You reckon he would have had an issue with that?
He would have invented a very tortuous explanation for why he wasn't going to say the word. That would be my guess. What would your guess be?
I think he would have exploded just the same way he had planned to. He'd already been muzzle loaded up with all the gizmo. He was fixing to do it
right. Yeah, that was the whole point of the exercise of him doing the appearance, was that so he could have that big performative orgasm of rage. And that's so much of what everything on television is anymore now.
Sorry, it's go gadget outrage.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it any better.
Oh wow. What's the youngest gang member you ever heard of?
9?
Yeah. All right. What if I could show you evidence of a 7-year-old gang member holding down a corner somewhere in Arizona with actual firearms?
I would say, show me the money.
All right, here we go, bro. It's all like Donkey Kong, let me tell you. Skadoosh. So this is Mr. Colin Noir. That is an unfortunate pause face. Let me fix that. That's not much better.
Hell is going.
Okay, that'll do. I don't want to do my man dirty. This is Colin Noir, and Homeboy has been doing more or less Second Amendment type content on YouTube for the past, 8 years or so. He's been around for a while, and he's covered a lot of stories. And I don't usually pick out of his basket because he covers the same stories everybody else covers, but from a Second Amendment perspective. And he doesn't seem to have a whole lot of woke stuff running around in his channel. And so it's a decent place to go and look for Second Amendment information. That being said, I just loved his breakdown of this whole situation. So I'm going to let my man explain it to you, and then we'll get to the meat and drink of this whole thing.
Going on in New Mexico. I don't know what they're putting in the water out there, but between the meth-laced chaos and the daily Florida Man level headlines, New Mexico is really trying to out Florida, because now we've got children, I'm talking 9 and 7 years old, having a full-blown standoff with the police.
It's a shocking standoff between deputies and 2 brothers armed with a loaded gun.
Put it down for me.
So, this is not funny. There's nothing humorous about this, but I am going to make jokes because my little homies are holding it down. They're out there working that street corner like professionals, man.
And we're not going to say they're better than female cops.
I am a little upset.
We would never say something like that.
I'm a little upset that he's got a high standard out there. Yes. I don't know, man. Secondary.
You're not in trouble, but you have to drop that.
Drone footage shows a 9-year-old boy hiding the gun behind his back. His 7-year-old brother tries to grab it. Then the boys start fighting over the loaded weapon.
Drop it, buddy.
The 7-year-old boy takes possession.
It's okay. You're not in trouble, buddy.
Deputies continued calling out orders to the boys.
Keep in mind, it's okay for the cops to lie to you.
Yep, absolutely.
Trying to stop a tragedy from happening.
Can you put it down for me?
Just put it down.
The boys, wearing Minecraft and Star Wars themed pajamas, are in their neighbor's backyard in Albuquerque. Officers.
What was that?
Well, of course they're wearing Minecraft and Star Wars pajamas, because what little kid wouldn't be?
Sure, it makes sense. I'm just so curious about the fallout on this. This is going to be interesting.
Decide it's time to fire a non-lethal rubber bullet.
Drop it! Drop it!
It's a perfect shot, landing right between the brothers. But watch, the 9-year-old responds by raising the gun and taking aim at the deputies. Officers
Jesus
say
Christ,
he
dude.
pulled the trigger. Thank goodness the
As
gun
an observation, and I hate to be that guy, but his actual positioning and stance was almost flawless. Somebody's taught that kid to shoot. He wasn't just repeating what he saw on TV. He actually squared up.
I would call it disturbingly flawless. Where does he learn that behavior?
Another rubber bullet is fired, and this time the deputies are able to move in as the boys try to hide.
Drop it now.
I don't even have the gun. I don't have the gun.
Deputies yank the gun away and take the brothers into custody as 7 officers swarm.
The only reason this didn't end with the...
All right. I think we are all happy that the boys got out unscathed for the most part. I imagine they probably have a pretty nasty bruise or so, They probably weren't gentle with them, not like, little babes in the cradle, but they're alive. They weren't mag dumped on by an entire SWAT team. But
the parents have got some splaining to do.
Lucy got some splaining to do, bro. Like, that's true. That's true. There's gonna. I want to know what the fallout on all this is gonna be.
You will not hear one word about that story in the mainstream fake news media. I don't think there's any angle they can play that through to make it a story of white racism.
I mean, the gun was white.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
That's too easy. It's low-hanging fruit.
The child in a body bag because that shitty gun jammed. Now, before anyone starts screaming, this is a gun issue. No, this is a shitty parenting issue. This is a system failure issue. This is a what happens when you ignore red flags for years and act shocked when the house finally burns down issue. The cops have been called to the house over 50 times. Over 50 times. So how do we go from we've been to this house 50 times to we're shocked this happened? You serious?
This is what I mean by people getting sick and tired of the victimhood narrative. Homie's not even entertaining it a little bit. That is the most ridiculous concept in his mind. You cannot victimize someone with a pistol. It is very difficult.
Yeah, and if you've been out there 50 times already, what the hell do you think is going to happen on time number 51?
Oh, rainbows and unicorns and little sparkly farts.
Yeah.
No, Bluetooth hole puncher every time.
Laws. This isn't about AR-15s. This is about a house so dysfunctional the kids are out here playing Grand Theft Auto Albuquerque in real life. I know some anti-gunners' first thought is going to be, see, this is why we need more gun control. But my first thought is, this is why shitty people shouldn't have kids, because those kids grow up to be shittier people. I meant what I said. This is a parenting failure, a systemic failure. And yet we keep having the same damn conversation every time something like this happens. People see two kids with a gun and immediately scream, see, guns are the problem. No, the problem is we've built a culture that's quicker to ban objects than to hold people accountable. Let's run this down. A 9-year-old and a 7-year-old are in a standoff with police.
All right. To me, that's the tagline, bro. That you don't even need no more meat and drink on that problem to see the problem right out the gate.
And let's come right out and say it. A 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, they're old enough to start learning about handling firearms. If that's the kind of household they're gonna be, they are perfectly old enough to start learning about gun safety and how to respect a firearm and what you do and what you don't do. But that's not what we see here. We just see the emulation of either action movies or dad and dad's friends. We don't see any actual instruction here or what one might call parenting.
Well, if you take a really close look at the video, you find that both of these children are operating with excellent trigger discipline. Not one time until he points that gun, he squares up and points the firearm, does the finger go inside the finger guard that I can see. Now, it's a potato footage, I get that. But when you can see the trigger guard, they're nowhere near the trigger. They know how to handle a firearm, and they're more or less doing it correctly, except for when they're muzzle flashing each other, passing it back and forth and wrestling over and stuff. But even then, there's no discharge. There's nothing to imply that they were mishandling other than the wrestling itself. So,
the failed parenting thing enters the equation when sure, they know how to hold it, they don't know when to hold it and when not to hold it, and when it's okay to brandish a firearm and when maybe it isn't, like when you're surrounded by half a dozen police officers.
To be perfectly clear, it is never acceptable to brandish a firearm. That is against the law. If you are going to present your firearm in public and you take it out of the holster itself or out of your pocket and you show it to people, you need to shoot somebody. Because if you shoot somebody, you're not going to be charged with brandishing.
It's a fair point.
I'm just saying, if you don't shoot anyone, you're almost certainly going to be charged with brandishing. And if you shoot at someone and miss, you're probably going to be charged with reckless discharge and attempted murder and all kinds of other stuff. But if you shoot them right where you meant to, you can skip all those other charges and go straight to the head of the line with a murder 101, bro.
Lawyer Squatch has just solved your legal problem for you.
Yeah, just be careful out there. It's a tough neighborhood. So I mean, what do we do about this? How do we rectify the situation where children are running around? I mean, what about the kids, dude? What about the children? Ain't that the cry? Ain't that what everybody says?
Well, here we have a case, I think, of children just mirroring the behavior they see from the adults in their lives without really any understanding of whether it's good or bad or proper or improper, which ultimately is the difference between mirroring and parenting. Because in parenting, there's a big component of do what I say, don't what I do, not what I do. You might see daddy brandishing his firearm like this, but damn it, son, you don't do that too.
Well, I guess the same thing when it comes to drinking, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, there's certainly been a breakdown in education in this household. I don't think anybody would disagree with that point. So yeah, that's the story. I don't think I need him to scream at us anymore to make it any more of a point. I mean, it's a bad parenting situation, and I don't care what color, race, creed, or religion, ethnicity the children are. Bad parenting, bad guardians.
Well, it's a thing that if you're a parent, it makes you sick to your stomach to see kids doing something like that when they're old enough to have been taught everything that is bad about what they're doing. I mean, very, very basic bedrock parenting stuff, like don't brandish a firearm in the presence of the police. You know, that's kindergarten level stuff, you might say.
The other video I come across that was commenting on it didn't go nearly so hard, and basically got the topic off point. They were basically saying that the laws weren't stringent enough to enforce the proper storage and whatnot of firearms, and that's how they got a hold to them. I haven't been able to find anything on how they actually got. That's why I'm waiting for the fallout on all of this. So I think it's going to be an interesting thing to look back on in a couple of weeks when we get a little bit more detail out of it.
But it's perfectly natural that people of a certain ideological bent would default to that. Well, this is a law. We just haven't made the right laws because they never want to default to personal accountability and raising your children properly. They want to make everything into a law problem. If we see a problem, it's because we don't have the right law. We just need to make a new law that makes that exact thing not happen. And that's what people do when they are big government buffoons, isn't it?
Exactly. And there's not a government agency out there that doesn't need more funding next year. So they'll obviously find more of the stuff that they need to do in order to justify their more funding, right?
Hey, remember when AOC told us if we got rid of the police, every place would look like the suburbs? That quote sure hasn't aged very well.
Like milk. Oh my Lord, I'd forgotten about that. You're right. But I didn't forget about her going to the chain link fence and crying at a place that wasn't even doing the thing.
One of the great political stunts of the 21st century, I would submit. It's a bold move, flying halfway across the country to cry over an empty parking lot. But our girl AOC, she is a bold gal, by God.
She did it. All right. So in other news, and this is
it will be at some point in the future.
Shut up, Ben. I'm not ready for you yet. So for those of you who don't know, Tim Pool and what's his name from Adam Explains Everything or whatever, Connor Tomlinson. No, that's not right. What's his name? Freaking yeah, it's Adam something. He's Adam on YouTube. Everybody knows him. He's been on your feed forever and ever, telling you what a terrible person you are and how there's not enough land and we got to get rid of some of the carbon. But you are the carbon we want to get rid of. So
yes,
keep that on while we're watching.
Fucking this. Carbon unit.
we've been trying to add a segment, or at least I have been, that we call the Smarmalade, right? And I found this bit, and I found a good old Sargon of Akkad going over the very same point that I was wanting to make, and he does it so well. It's such an excellent performative thing,
as it often is with him.
All sides of this. Benjamin's doing a magnificent job, and then Tim Pool is absolutely eviscerating this fool, and homie can't do nothing but smile and say you're wrong. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo, I'm not listening to you. You know, that whole freaking thing, bro. And it's so hilarious to me to watch.
I know you are, but what am I?
Exactly, that rubber and glue BS. It's like
the Pee Wee Herman School of Internet Discourse.
Now, we're not going to go through all of this. We're going to check out a couple of specific points, but his intro is absolutely amazing, and he does it better than most people I see. And he's not especially right-wing. I want to make this perfectly clear. In America, he'd be a liberal. He would straight up be like a center-of-the-road Democrat.
Yeah, but we have very bizarre definitions of where the Overton window is now.
Right. So until that settles down, we're just going to have to go with what we can get. But me and him agree on this point here, most of it.
It will be at some point in the future that people don't know what an insufferable smug liberal is. And so I want to show you, through the medium of Tim Pool having Adam Conover inflicted upon him. Now, I want to be very clear. Adam Conover knows exactly what he's doing. He knows precisely what he's doing. He knows what Tim is saying. He knows that his position is wrong. And then he adopts what I'm going to call a kind of tactical retardation. It's like, oh, well, I just don't know anything about this. I just don't know what's going on.
Does this not sound familiar? Oh, my Lord. He just named it.
I love that term of tactical retardation. That is a thing of beauty, Sargon.
Dude, I have been on panels where people who were speaking perfectly eloquently in a debate turn around and just basically state that they are too moronic to understand the words that are coming out of your mouth because
it is a thing that we see happen every single day when someone finds themselves in a rhetorically uncomfortable position.
Right. And he goes on to define some other points here that are ubiquitous across the whole liberal sphere over there.
On. But the thing is, Adam, everyone does know that you know, because it just comes out of your mouth shortly prior to you pretending that you don't know. And by God, I can see why people are infuriated with this. But the point of it, the reason that he does it, is so he can avoid taking accountability for being wrong. Because for Adam, truth or lies are both the same. The question is, does the consensus mechanism of his tribe permit him to go outside of a certain boundary?
That consensus mechanism. There, that phrase says so much, because that is so much of what the liberal intellect has defaulted to. It's the thing I talk about from time to time that I call the Wikipediaization of the human intellect, where we have taken truth and replaced it with consensus. If a bunch of people we identify as smart say a thing is a certain way, then that's more important than truth, and we regard that in lieu of truth and take it as truth, and that's madness.
It basically comes down. He just said exactly the same thing as trust the science.
Yes.
You're
damn right.
The same position. Stop thinking for yourself. Listen to the experts. Don't trust anyone who's not a bona fide PhD in that specific field, and everyone else is just useless cog of economics. Right?
It is a man who wants to live in an authoritarian technocracy where you always trust the kindly man in the white lab coat
or the AI. Yes.
Yep.
Exactly. So he's dropping some thick concepts all the way through this little intro bit. And when we actually get into breaking down the actual video, he can't stop.
And he knows that it doesn't. He knows that his entire audience, his entire livelihood, his entire social circle depends on him believing certain things. And if they can be shown to be categorically false, it doesn't matter. There is no amount of evidence that proves Adam Conover wrong in Adam's mind, because really, for Adam, this is not about the facts. What this is about is a moral agenda. And this moral agenda triumphs over everything. It's what makes their group their group. And
bingo.
In his mind, I have to maintain the appearance of ideological purity, or I will lose my audience and I will lose money.
Exactly. And on top of that, without the consensus group agreeing with him, he has lost all of his political capital and every bit of his ideological fervor. Because if he's not in that groove that he senses his followers or whatever want him to be in, then he is not the person he says he is. But in reality, he's not the person he says he is because he's just wrong.
Yes, because nobody is going to that guy's channel and consuming his content because they want deep, thought-provoking, probative analysis. They are going to that channel and consuming that content to have smoke blown up their ass and confirmation of their priors.
I don't disagree on any particular point, but I think it's also because they prefer that idealistic flavor of Marxism. Right. So it essentially comes down to a bunch of revolutionary cultists that are sitting around bloviating back and forth at each other just to blow smoke up each other's asses. It's navel gazing at its finest.
Yep.
Tim, as someone who putatively agreed with the morals, but is also primarily concerned with truth, was forced to leave that tribe because of their commitment to untruth. And a great example of this was shown on Tim Pool's, I think it's the Culture War show that he does, where somehow he got Adam to agree to come on, and Adam sits there with this fucking face, smugly, while Tim gets frustrated.
Marmaladian.
I'm showing you truth.
Yeah, no, I really want to try to get into his Discord so I can drop this whole Smarmaladia thing on him, because if this motherfucker right here does not represent Smarmalade at its finest.
I mean, just the thing with the head on the hand and the smug, self-satisfied little smirk. It's all right there. It's all right there.
In a body language read on this guy, he is so consciously discognizant during this interview that he's gritting his teeth and basically closing his eyes physically so as not to see Tim getting upset. And his only guiding light the entire time is I can't say anything that pisses off my audience. Which pretty much means he can't speak the truth, which means he can't speak intelligently on any given topic.
Right. So he has to bloviate and obfuscate and play all the same, mental gymnastics that we always see such people playing week after week after week.
Exactly.
Adam refuses to engage with truth because, like I said, truth is just not how his social world works. He's not like, making aircraft fly or something important like that. For him, getting people to believe one narrative over another is his career, is what he does. That's what he's trying to achieve. And ladies and gentlemen, that is propaganda. That is what that is. Narratives versus reality is propaganda at its base.
It is propaganda in exactly the same sense as when Jake Tapper goes on your television and tells you Joe Biden is totally good to serve another 4 years. And how do we know? Because Jake Tapper said so.
Oh, he got diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, according to the AP.
It's true. And the Robert Hur tapes just dropped this week.
So whether people believe something that is true about the world or false about the world is actually completely irrelevant. It's all the same to him. As long as they believe the liberal moral version of reality, whether it's real or not, whether it's true or not, or the evil right-wing version of reality, which completely demolishes the liberal version, that's the question for him. So whether this actually contacts with the real world, the physical world around us, and has a direct impact to Adam means nothing. As long as he is persuasive to the left, that's the important thing. Let's watch. Okay, so that's one of the things that weirds me out about this whole thing. He's rolling this propaganda out not to convince the right or to convince new voters to join his side, but rather to placate the voters that he's already got under his wings.
Yes.
There's
that's exactly right.
There's zero space for growth in that. That's one point that I can actually throw Gavin Newsom a bone on, is he is at least getting outside of his box a little bit with what he's been doing the past month or two.
Is he still doing his little podcast? I never heard about it after the first couple of installments.
I haven't heard anything recently. I meant to go check it out and see what he had been doing, but it got subsumed under,
I just love how he named the show after himself. What did he name it? This is Gavin Newsom. Not this is the governor of California, which you might expect a man to say who was operating in his official capacity, but this is Gavin Newsom. I want him to have the Duchess of Sussex on there. What an interview that would be.
Right.
Harry and Meghan both. Harry and Meghan versus Gavin.
Right.
The self-delusion Olympics. Sorry.
This is Tim Pool's, they're halfway through the interview. They've already been talking, I think, for 45 minutes or so. And they've gotten to a point where Tim has asked a question. I'll let it play out. It's easier to understand when you see it happen.
Awesome thing. Let's watch this.
Bro, Donald Trump dumped food into a fish pond after Shinzo Abe did. Why are you trying to make that a negative story? I don't even know what that was talking about there. It's all of these hoaxes. The very fine people hoax.
I remember the line. Yeah, they're
never called Nazis fine people.
He said there were very fine people on both sides.
Except
right. So there we go. Out of Adam Conover's mouth, he knows.
Notice how he closes his eyes to say that.
I was just going to say the same. He is leaning as far away as he can, not maintaining eye contact. He clearly is quite embarrassed over what he finds himself having to say at the moment. And it's written all over his face and his body language, isn't it?
Yeah. He's wearing it right on his face.
Yep.
But the left-wing narrative is that Donald Trump called Nazis very fine people. Well, Donald Trump didn't. And as Tim Pool is about to explain to him, Donald Trump said, there are fine people on both sides except the Nazis and white supremacists who I condemn, or words to that effect.
Yeah.
Right? Adam Conover doesn't know this because Adam Conover doesn't need this information. This information would not be persuasive to his liberal audience. In fact, if he brought it up, they'd be like, oh, so you're defending Donald Trump now, are you? And he would actually be... So the consensus mechanism of him being safe in his own career has completely diverged from what is actually true over here and what is actually what he believes and will remember over here. And so Tim goes off on.
It's essentially selective memory. You choose to remember the headlines and not the actual stories. You choose to remember what's on the big screen and not what actually happened.
And it must be an exhausting way to live. It strikes me as not unlike a man who's a serial philanderer, who has three different girlfriends in three different towns, and he's got to keep all the lies straight constantly, and he's got to keep track of which lie I told to this one and which lie I told to that one, and that's what this is like, because you were just trying to present a version of yourself that confirms the priors that your audience already has that caused them to come and start consuming your content in the first place. So you just have to keep shoveling that slop into their face holes, because that's all they want from you. They want you to keep shoveling that slop into their face holes. They didn't come here for you to make them think about things. They don't want to think. They want to be told they're right, and they want you to tell them they're right, and that's the whole reason why you exist. And it has to be just absolutely an exhausting way to live.
Absolutely. And I can't see how anybody could stand in the face of such cognitive dissonance. And you see him slowly start to melt down over here, realizing he's made a horrible error coming over here, right? He feels, and here's the funny thing, Tim Pool is as far left as a right-winger can get, right? Like, he's so far left that he's not a right-winger, people. If anything, he's a fence sitter. So
it was not all that long ago that I had never once heard anyone call Tim Pool a right-winger.
Yeah, no.
It was probably only a few years ago. I mean, that's been a very, very recent development.
Yeah, ever since he started like triggering into that Civil War algorithm, and that's when everybody decided he was some form of revolutionary dissident or something. I don't know. He was just
Tim Pool was still a low information Democrat voter as recently as Elon Musk was still a low information Democrat voter.
Right. Which is literal evidence of the pendulum swinging.
Yes. Remember when Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan's show smoking a fucking joint talking about how he voted for Joe Biden? Nobody hated his cars then, but they sure do now.
Sure that was a blunt, sir. Just
I stand corrected.
For journalistic integrity.
And understandably so. It's very understandable that someone this deliberately deceptive would be this infuriating.
The neo-Nazis and white nationalists who should be condemned totally.
He said that?
Yes, Adam, he said that. And Tim is about to prove that to you. But this is the thing. The next thing, Tim is a liar, right? That's what he comes to. He said that as if Tim's going to be like, well, here's a Fox News article. Be like, well, I don't believe Fox News. Therefore, I don't believe Tim Pool. Therefore, you're lying. Therefore, Donald Trump was praising neo-Nazis. And I'm...
Right. We pick and choose our narratives we want to go with based on the people that we accept those narratives from. And if you simply
there's such a little tiny limited slice of the world that we're willing to listen to, and it's only the slice that confirms our priors, and everything else after that, like the rest of that Donald Trump quote that's not convenient to me thinking the Orange Man is bad, I'm going to pretend I never heard that, and I'm going to memory hole it and forget it until the end of frickin' time.
Right. Jesus.
Back on the liberal plantation, all of my liberal followers are like, bravo, Adam, bravo, we've got him now, Trump the Nazi. However... like 8 years later or something, Snopes came out and were like, yeah, that wasn't true, actually. Which is remarkable, considering it's Snopes.
Holy shit.
When Tim Pool starts cussing, things have gotten bad.
Man.
Right, that's interesting, isn't it?
You don't live in the fucking news, dude. Come the fuck on.
Right.
Come the fuck on.
So Donald Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. Adam.
And I find it funny that he went to Snopes. He went to Snopes specifically because this is the one rag that Adam can't look at and go, oh, well, that's just some right-wing chicanery, right?
Exactly. That's exactly why he did it. Even these left-wing psychopaths say you're wrong, Adam.
Right?
Like, oh, well, I don't live in your bubble. Again, instantly, no, my reality is completely subjective. What are you talking about? What's real about the world is only what we perceive, and therefore the consensus I live in makes no difference to whether it's true or false. As long as these people agree with me, it doesn't matter if what you're saying is real, because we have already decided Donald Trump evil and we have to fight him all the time, and that's how our cult works. And Tim is trying to show...
Bingo!
Just keep coming back to my channel for that sweet, sweet validation, ladies and gentlemen. That's all that matters.
You hate Trump? I do too. Let's hate together.
What a coincidence! Let's hate the bad orange man together. It'll be great.
It is unadulterated, and the people who do it get addicted to it like freaking smack, bro. It's amazing.
Oh, I know, and I spend more and more time wondering about what life is going to be like for those people, because Trump is going to be gone a few years from now. He's going to shuffle off the political stage, and a lot of people are going to have to reckon with the fact that they spent a period of years, upwards of a decade, hating this man unconditionally, just reviling him day after day after day, finding new ways to hate him and new ways to revile him. And what benefit did you gain from it exactly? Ever? Any? No, of course there wasn't any benefit, but you did it anyway because somehow it made you feel good about yourself, and that's a problem.
There is a benefit. They get validation from their cult. That's their benefit.
If you're a fake content creator, then obviously you have a profit motive in the whole thing.
That too. There is money involved.
Show him know that there is a reality here that you could be introduced to, and I'm just like, well, look, it doesn't come up on my feed. I'm not in your filter bubble, therefore I'm not in your consensus reality, which way more accurately models the real world than Adam's does. And I mean, it's genuinely impressive how Adam can have the balls to sit there and go, okay, I've been proven totally wrong, and now I'm just going to play the hatchling. Now I'm just going to go, well, I mean, I was born yesterday, mate. I don't know what's going on. I don't know anything about anything.
And that is exactly what homie does. He falls back to a position of an absolute ignorance, willful ignorance, and unwilling to expand one's horizons. Not only do I not know, I don't want to know.
You know who else we often see this from is Bill Maher. Whenever he goes and does an interview with someone, with an interlocutor who is even just a tiny bit not ideologically aligned with him, the Megyn Kelly interview from last year is the one that comes to mind. That, you know, his whole argument is just the very narrow anti-Trump orange mad bad version of the world that he sees to view, and then she comes back with, but Bill, that's not true, because that's not the whole quote, and here's the whole context. And when that happens to him, he just wilts like a flower immediately, every single time, just rolls over and looks away. Out, fine, whatever, next subject, have it your way. Never even remotely tries to argue and vindicate his own position that he has just put out there, because he has just realized that his position is nonsense, and it's ignorant, and he's a buffoon, and he's just been made a fool of.
He's a clown. He performed. I mean, I'll make the argument that I'm a clown. I perform exactly on order. When the performance is required, I perform. Right?
We are both song and dance men, nothing else.
Very little else. I do put a little bit of effort into the shows. I do try to do some background work on some of it, and most of it, I just plug straight off the top of the headlines like every other YouTuber in existence, and I make no excuses for that.
But here's the difference. You and I have no investment, emotional, professional, or otherwise, in what reality is. You and I are both perfectly willing to see reality as we perceive it and say, hey, that's reality as I perceive it. Neither of us is trying to confirm the priors of our audience and blow smoke up their ass in the desperate hope that they're going to keep coming back and giving us a few pennies in the hat. You know, that's the difference between people like us and people like this jackass.
Yeah, no, I guess that's very well said, actually. I guess you've thought about that before. This is kind of a new concept to me. Okay.
I don't care that Snopes is suddenly an evil right-wing neo-Nazi organization. Like, suddenly, everything... and so what he does now is just retreats from the point and pretends he doesn't know anything about anything.
You don't read the fucking news!
And I understand Tim getting annoyed here, because Adam is tactically avoiding having to actually engage with what Tim is saying. And he's doing it so he doesn't lose his career. He's doing it because he's a dishonest shill. He's doing it because he's a liar. He's just a fat liar. He's
doing it for all the reasons we've been talking about this whole time.
Blows my mind.
Exactly.
I just don't have your.
Trump did not.
Right, he doesn't have his obsessions with the truth, the fact of the matter. Trump didn't say this. Adam begins by saying Trump said this. And so now he's like, well, look, I just don't have your obsession. It just doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me if I'm lying, says Adam. That's not a problem for him.
Yes. There's a lot of...
But here's... Go ahead.
There's a lot of this all the way through this entire... I wouldn't even call it a debate. It was more of an interview in which one side refused to engage and the other side tried to present facts and accepted doctrine that's somewhere between here and there from sources that he would accept. And he basically just goes, well, I can't read anymore.
Yeah, but here's the other thing for people like Adam. You are so invested in making the crux of your worldview, building them around such stupid, totally insignificant things, ultimately. Like, what actual difference does it make if... So you're hanging your whole worldview on the idea that one day in 2017, Trump just randomly said that neo-Nazis were very fine people? That's the best argument you have for why Trump is neo-Nazi adjacent? Because I feel like that's not a very good argument for why Trump is neo-Nazi adjacent.
They got a new one. It has to do with white South Africans.
Oh, yes, we do. Oh, God. That was a mask-off moment if we ever saw one.
Dude, like I said, it has broken the entire media cycle. You cannot with any level of cognitive integrity look at a group of refugees who are obviously refugees, for all intents and purposes have accomplished what would otherwise be impossible in a perfectly legal fashion, and they can't accept them, and there's only one reason why.
Yes, and where, I mean, just aside from the obvious racism, where is your self-awareness? Before you go on camera and say this stuff, where is that moment where you step back and say, you know, I may have acted like 15 million military-age males was a perfectly cool thing, and now I'm having shit fits over 49 Afrikaner families with children. This might not actually be the best look for me, but we never get that because self-awareness is so passé after all.
I mean, you put it in front of them and they just deny it's a fact and turn around and try to call you racist.
And
that is exactly
the venom and the anger and the viciousness and like people issuing threats to these people, and like does that make you feel good to do that? Makes you feel like a virtuous person when you threaten young families with children? That makes you feel good about yourself? You think you're standing on the moral high ground when you do that? I mean, really?
I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think this very same narrative that's at work here with Adam is also at work there with every single mainstream media and all of the supposedly fair and even .orgs and whatnot, the NGO, is that right? No, yeah, NGOs. All of those people are supposed to be colorblind essentially, but they just don't notice an entire stadium of people screaming for the death of a particular group that happen to have their own ethnicity. That they are completely blind to, but some shit going on in the Congo, we're going to have to get all those people out of there.
Yes, that is our problem alone, our problem immediately. We have to solve that problem.
And these are exactly the same type of blinders that are being used across both sides. And that's why I'm saying it's not a matter of black fatigue. It's a matter of false victimhood fatigue. People are so tired of other people utilizing their identity as their only victim narrative and the only narrative that's permissible in their space that nobody cares anymore.
And often indeed, the only prism through which we are allowed to discuss anything is the victimhood prism. And right. You know, how are people not supposed to be sick of that when it is such an act of hostility toward the human intellect?
Exactly. But let's get back specifically on topic. Adam and the Schmarmalade.
What is a problem for him is if in some way Donald Trump gets humanized. Wasn't it Jimmy Kimmel, I think it was, who ruffled his hair? Like, if you humanize Donald Trump, that's a problem. If Donald Trump didn't praise Nazis, that's a problem. If I'm spewing lies about the president of the United States, that's not a problem. That's me being a moral person, says Adam. And that's the most important thing to take away from this. Lies are a core point of Adam's worldview. He thinks he's moral when he commits to the lie.
Call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. Bro, it's been almost 10 years and you still think he did. That's
no, I didn't say I think he did. I just don't know what you're talking about because I don't listen to your...
Oh, come on, Adam. Come on, Adam. Oh, fucking Adam.
That's what I'm saying. And that is exactly the same type of crap that you're seeing in every single feature of the left currently. This is why the left is losing. This is why progressive...
If a Tim Pool interview goes this badly for you, you've got fairly serious problems, dude.
Foundational problems is what I would say.
It's not like Tim Pool is a hard-hitting investigative reporter. He maybe just wants you to bring one or two receipts and be prepared to justify what you're saying in something resembling a cogent manner. But you can't even do that because you're a buffoon.
Absolutely.
Go back.
Totally.
He said that.
Holy shit!
I mean, literally.
I mean, I remember the line. Yeah, they're
never called Nazis fine people.
He said there were very fine people on both sides.
Except, no, Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. Bro, it's been almost 10 years and you still think he did. That's
no, I didn't say I think he did. I just don't know what you're talking about because I
can't think that if you've actually heard the entire quote. The only way you can think that is if you have only heard that little 7 or 8 word snippet. Because those of us out here who are honest people, who know the quote, who know what was actually said on the day, we know exactly what Trump said on the day. He said there were very fine people on both sides of the issue about whether the statue of Robert E. Lee should remain or be torn down. That was the both sides he was talking about. He wasn't talking about non-racists and fucking neo-Nazis. That's the biggest lie in that whole goddamn ridiculous narrative.
It's there though, and they stick to it religiously.
Like flies on shit, dude.
I have a family member that was touting that crap around, and so I had a clip, the full clip, like 6 seconds or so. It wasn't even a long clip, right? Long enough to get the whole quote in. And every time they would bring it up, I would just hit play and let it play. I wouldn't say a word. I just played the entire quote, and they just look at me. And the very next time we would come across each other, they would have exactly the same talking points, exactly the same way again. It's nightmare.
I'm finding the video right now. Play a little bit more of this, and then I'll drop it in the bin.
All right.
Your shit.
It's not.
You liar. You're just lying. Literally 20 seconds before, you were like, yeah, Trump called Nazis very fine people. Tim brings up Snopes, which you in no way can allege is a right-wing organization. And you're like, well, I don't know. I don't follow you. I don't believe your stuff. And it's like, yeah, but this was in your bubble. It came from Snopes. And again, if you're just sat there going, well, I mean, I'm just completely ignorant to how the world actually is. Don't you think that a bit of humility might be applicable here? Like giving him the smug face as if Tim is somehow wrong and doesn't realize that you are impervious to truth because you're such a committed liar. Is that really worthy of being smug? Is that really, really worthy of being like, you know what, I am I'm the spirited person here. I'm such a fucking liar. I'm such a categoric, congenital, implacable liar that Tim Pool is just getting flustered that I'm just lying to his face. I'm lying right now.
So the most important part of all this, in my opinion, is nothing less than Tim Pool actually losing the cheese off his cracker for a few seconds. And it was for such
in a way that he very rarely does.
But, yeah, no, he doesn't do that. That's not something. Yeah. I mean, if there were more clips of that, like a Tim Pool being like that, he would be an even bigger YouTuber than he already is.
Yeah, he does not get that animated unless you have done something to earn it, and this guy did.
Absolutely. I mean, I got a couple of friends that just plead absolute morality on virtually any subject. They refuse to engage. What is this? Trump's full statement. Oh,
it's the full Charlottesville statement.
Yeah, we got it. We got time.
Per Fiona's request.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm in Washington today to meet with my economic team about trade policy and major tax cuts and reform. We are renegotiating trade deals and making them good for the American worker, and it's about time. Our economy is now strong. The stock market continues to hit record highs. Unemployment is at a 16-year low, and businesses are more optimistic than ever before. Companies are moving back to the United States and bringing many thousands of jobs with them. We have already created over 1 million jobs since I took office. We will be discussing economic issues in greater detail later this afternoon. But based on the events that took place over the weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia, I would like to provide the nation with an update on the ongoing federal response to the horrific attack and violence that was witnessed by everyone. I just met with FBI Director Christopher Wray and Attorney General Jeff Sessions. The Department of Justice has opened a civil rights investigation into the deadly car attack that killed one innocent American. and wounded 20 others. To anyone who acted criminally in this weekend's racist violence, you will be held fully accountable. Justice will be delivered. As I said on Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place.
Yeah, Fiona's right. I'm going to find the actual thing we're looking for.
I've said many times before. No matter.
I'm actually looking back here too, because if I remember right, that particular quote came from him on the steps.
I think I got. I think I got it right here.
Wasn't it Charlottesville courthouse?
Yeah,
something like that.
I'm dropping this in the private chat right now.
As soon as I hit play on it, I kind of twitched out on it a little bit, started going autistic.
Yeah, I think that's the one right there.
All right. Douche.
Thank you for the correction, Fiona.
Absolutely.
You're putting what you're calling alt left and white.
Okay, this is like, I believe, right in front. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all can't see it. Right in front of in the foyer of the Charlottesville courthouse, if I remember right. Or no, actually, it's live from New York.
And that's already a completely dishonest banner that they've got on the bottom of the screen, because he never says that.
4 minutes and 7 seconds.
White supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
On both sides, sir? You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Nazis started this thing. Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville.
Excuse me.
To protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of the park from Robert E. Lee to another name. No, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group
There's
other
the bit
than
you never hear.
And white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Unfairly, sir. I'm sorry. I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly? No, I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day, it looked like they had some rough, bad people. Neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this. There are two sides to a story, I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country. Does anybody have a final? Does anybody have an infrastructure?
What makes you think you can get an infrastructure bill? You didn't get help.
So it's very selectively cherry picked to make a specific narrative. And
oh yeah, there are vast stretches of that statement that you have to ignore in order to make it in your mind amount to Trump said neo-Nazis are awesome. I mean,
yeah, he never said
you've got to go on quite the intellectual flight of fancy to get from point A to point B on that one, but they don't. They never watch the actual statement. They watch the little bits that are cherry picked that amount to what they want it to amount to, that they consume on, Guy's channel. Adam probably has a selectively cherry picked, perfectly edited video of it on his channel, and it tells his audience exactly what they want to hear, and that's great for Adam. But it's not the actual reality. And what was Trump trying to do there, except what a president should do? He was trying to stay above the dispute and say that I recognize there are very strong passions on both sides. I don't approve of the fact that people were harmed and killed, but, and he admittedly, he could have phrased it a little more artfully because he was talking about two sides previously, and then he switched into really talking about a different two sides from the two sides that were engaged in violence to the two sides as far as the dispute about the statue goes. He didn't segue between the one and the other as well as he might have.
The peaceful protesters versus the political dissidents, and there were two sides to that as well. And
yes,
those are the ones that came to violence. Those are the ones that need to be put in check. Those are the ones that are creating the inflammatory headlines that you see. So,
but as far as the actual statement about very fine people, he was saying there are very fine people who have an argument for taking the statue down, and there are very fine people on the other side who have a good argument for leaving the statue up. And that is exactly what a president should do. And if we had an honest, functioning press, that's the way it would have been reported. But we don't, so it wasn't.
Right. So there you go. And we got 5 minutes left. What do we want to do with it?
Well, that's a hell of a good question.
Right. I could rant some more.
You should rant some more. I want to hear more rants from you. I like your rants.
All right. I'll keep that in mind. I'll try to find something to get incensed about each week. But, I mean, it comes down to victimhood narrative. That's what it is. We're not tired of any particular class of people. We're tired of people screaming around, woe is me. Oh, woe is me. I'm so oppressed. Now, if you're oppressed, how can you walk into an environment and completely dominate it with just a few squeaky wheel statements? You can't be a victim and the one that's perpetrating the victimhood. And I'm not going to permit
we have made victimhood into our most coveted form of social currency.
Yes, it's clout. It comes down to basically distilled clout that is utilized in the social media spaces specifically to justify your absolutely outlandish and clownish positions. It's like people who say my truth versus the truth.
Oh, yeah, and doesn't that just sum the whole thing up? Grim Ben wants a Marvel movie rant. Isn't it fun how they're trying to play Thunderbolts into some kind of a box office hit? What does it have? 320 million worldwide now after 3 or 4 weeks? Yeah, what a blockbuster that is, Marvel. Very great work. I mean, if we were living in 2010 and freaking Iron Man 2 was doing numbers like that, it would be seen as completely goddamn disastrous. But they're trying to play it as a hit. I haven't seen the picture. It looks very gray and very yellow. I can't imagine I ever will see the picture. There's nothing about the picture that makes me want to see it. It was such a tremendous box office hit, they changed the name of the fucking movie on the second weekend. And if that's not a show of confidence, I don't know what is. And I think that's about all the Marvel movie ranting I have for right now.
Okay, so forgive me, Captain Pride sinned. I finished watching and I watched Andor.
Oh, did you? How'd that turn out?
I actually like it. It's very indicative of pointing out the specific issues with the modern, pretty much modern everything, right? The concept of the modern audience ends up sort of being the butt to everything because the entire plot is based around propaganda and narrative and how propaganda and narrative can be used for evil purposes as well as good purposes. And though if you're having to use propaganda for good purposes, that's kind of counterintuitive. and I just don't agree with it.
If I'm being honest, the only specific thing I've actually heard about the show is that in the first episode, there's a scene where the border cops gang rape a bunch of illegal aliens. So that was cute.
Actually, what stopped me from watching the show, I think it's like the episode 4 or 5, I can't remember, but there's this point where a group of stormtroopers are marching some folks, like some people, into a place, and there's like 20 stormtroopers walking in a file of 2, and the people on the right have a left-handed gun position and the people on the left have a right-handed gun position, and they are literally just pointing their guns at each other's heads. Not exaggerating. I am dead serious. If somebody spooked these guys, it might kill every single person in that freaking column, bro.
And that is why we love Disney Star Wars so very, very much, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, do the thing, because it's that time now.
It is that time already. My God, where does the time go? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius tonight. We sure do love it when you take 90 minutes out of your very busy Sunday evening to spend this time here with us, with all the bloviating and the talking and the joking and what have you. And I'm going to have a lot of stuff this week. Be sure and watch it. He's going to have a lot of stuff this week. Be sure and watch it. We will convene right back here, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, next Sunday evening, like we always do, because we're like that. Have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
I hit the wrong button.